Hello everyone and welcome to this video. Now today I'm going to be taking a look at this album here. It is the Beach Boys album Love You. So yeah, this is quite a recent purchase for me. I only showed it again and the last vinyl update. But I fancied doing a 70s album review today. And the Beach Boys are a group who I haven't really talked about too much on my channel. So I just thought that today I would give this album a quick review. So this was the band's 21st studio album. 21. That was a incredible number. They'd only been going about 15 years by this point in time. So yeah, a hugely sort of deep and prolific discography that they had, released on the 11th of April in 1977. So their last album before this was called 15 Big Ones, which is often considered one of their worst efforts. It's a quite uninspired collection of mostly cover material. However, that record's significant because it saw Brian Wilson reintroduced to the band. And this was recorded at roughly at the same time, originally conceived as a Brian Wilson solo project. It was made during a process of drug and mental rehabilitation for him. Wilson played all the instruments on here and wrote all of the songs, being the sole songwriter on most of the album's cuts. However, due to tensions and relationships in the band, Brian felt uncomfortable pursuing a solo career at this point in time. So instead the record received vocal overdubs from the other Beach Boys and was issued as a Beach Boys album in April of 1977. It was also around this time where Wilson was receiving his first batch of treatment from Dr. Eugene Landy. His relationship with Brian was dramatized in the film Love and Mercy, and I read reports that during the making of this album, Landy would watch over Brian holding a baseball bat, pressuring him into working and being productive. Sonically, the album is very unique and it's seen as a sort of proto synth pop album. Lyrically, Brian was also trying quite hard to make it seem autobiographical and quite interesting lyrically. Apparently it said he wanted to recapture the multi-layered music and emotional depth of the Pet Sounds album. So this record is sort of split into two sides. The side one having more sort of up-tempo numbers, and the second side featuring more slower romantic tunes. So upon release, this album divided fans and critics. It only charted at number 28 in the UK and number 53 in America. This was in part due to lack of proper promotion from the record label, as the chief executive of Warner Brothers, a guy called Mo Austin, felt that the record should have been touched up a little bit further. In the years since, so it has gained a appreciation from many musical artists, including Patti Smith, R.E.M's Peter Buck and Alex Chilton, and very much gained a cult fan following. One critic described the album as a mesmerising and dark portrait of the world as viewed through the eyes of an emotionally fraught 34-year-old rock star whose own success has become an inescapable trap. So I will just now show you my vinyl copy. As I said, just a recent purchase here, one which I got when I was spending some time in America. I really like the cover. It's just very sort of colourful, very bright, very sort of Beach Boysy. And there's a picture of them on the back of it there, with the song titles at the top there, although noticeably completely out of order, in a random, basically a random order. Not sure if this was the originally intended track listing, but certainly the tracks that go on the record appear in a different order to what's listed here. And then the inner sleeve is also quite interesting. We just get some sort of concert sort of photos go on this side, not that interesting, but this side here features a sort of tribute to Brian Wilson. It says to Brian whom we love with all our hearts, and sort of reads as a sort of tribute to him. I read that this could be the other Beach Boys sort of giving thanks to Brian, for basically sort of making this album and being central to it creatively. And then we look at the record label itself. It's on Reprise Records here, Beach Boys Love You. So yeah, this was probably one of the best pickups which I got in America. Okay, so I'll now go over each of the album songs. I'll score each track out of 10, and then those scores will be used to give us a overall percentage marking for the album.
Going to school isn't my fondest desire.
So the first song up is called Let Us Go On This Way, which is a quite upbeat, quite sort of tough, like sounding like rocking track. Like the harmony vocals do sound a little bit like aged like on this song, like, but they do like fit like the track. I really sort of like I really like the sort of like drum sound like on this. It just sounds so like unique, very much like sort of sonically like ahead like of its time. This track would get a 9 out of 10 for me. A very good opening song there. And then that's followed up by a song called Roller Skating Child, which this one is inspired like by like Brian's children, like who like used to go like ice skating, like, but then like it sort of like it goes into this sort of like quite sort of classic like sort of 50s like sort of like romance story, like maybe like a attempt to sort of like recapture like some of like the innocence like what made like the early work like appeal. Like however, it does sound a little bit like unsettling, like hearing like these sort of like mid-30-year-olds like singing like about like being like attracted like to like a roller skating child. Like however, again, it's got such a unique sound like to like the instruments like on it, like it's arranged like exceptionally well, so I would give it a 7 out of 10. And then the kind of sort of 50s feeling sort of continues that with the next song, which is called Mona, which has a kind of sort of Motown beat like alongside the sort of like synth like rhythm track. Like I've read that like this song like is like a homage like to Phil Spector's production style. For me though, it's just not a brilliant track. Like the actual song itself like isn't like anything too great. It just sort of passes by like about like 2 minutes long, like without making much like of a impression.
Johnny Carson.
The next track is called Johnny Carson, which is one of the more like talked about songs like on the album. Like it's a slightly darker track, like which has you've got a great sort of piano tone like on like this song here, alongside slightly bizarre lyrics, like which could be like a metaphor, like sort of like comparing like Brian, like who felt that he was being like overworked, like and like under pressure, like to like write songs like and like come up like with hits. Like he's sort of like comparing like himself like to like the late night like daily host like Johnny Carson like off like the 70s. Like so yeah, like although it might seem a little bit silly like on like the surface, like if I actually like read into like the lyrics like on this song, like it is like quite like emotionally deep. So yeah, Johnny Carson would get a 8 out of 10 from me. And that's followed up by another sort of slightly more like mellow piece, a song called Good Time, which has these sort of ambient sounds again, like the background, like kind of like this sort of raindrop like effects like on like the first verse. Again, sonically it's like really like quite interesting, like especially for like 1977, like when like synthesizers like were like very much like in like their infancy, like in like pop music. The actual song itself goes back to 1972, where Brian and Al Jardine gave the song to a sort of like American duo called American Spring. Like whoever, like after like their version like of the song like went absolutely nowhere. Like Wilson like must have thought like, why put like a good song to waste? Like so like they redo it like for this record here. I would say lyrically it is very basic, but musically quite quirky and like definitely like very like impressive like song like sonically, like most of this album is. So the next number is, I believe it was the only single like called like from this record. It's a song called Honking Down the Highway, which this one features like Al Jardine like on like lead vocals. It's just quite a fun like upbeat track. Again, it's nothing like remarkable, like just a good solid song. So I give it a 7 out of 10. And then to close off side one, we get a very short, like, very silly track, I have to admit. A song called Ding Dang, which this one, believe it or not, was actually co-written, like, by, like, the Byrds, like, Roger McGuinn. Like, I mean, it lasts for, like, less than, like, a minute. It's just a silly song. And, like, to be honest with you, like, the fact that, like, it wasn't, like, a co-write, like, with, like, McGuinn, like, it's, like, quite, like, laughable. Because the actual song is just nothing, really. Like, it's just a bit of filler like on like the record. I could only really give it like a 4 out of 10. So then we open up side 2 with a song called Solar System, which I think this might be the first Brian Wilson lead vocal like on like the record, like I'm not too sure, but Brian sings this song, like slightly sort of like rough, like ragged vocals like on it though, like it's a song basically like just about like the planets and like that, like sort of like like space and like that sort of thing. I mean, the song is probably again also one of the only ones which kind of feels like it goes on a bit, because most of the tracks I got it about like between like 2 and 3 minutes long. Like again, I'm not sure like how long this song like actually goes on for, but when I actually like listening to it, like it does feel like it is going on like a bit. Like I see like the track, it's less than 3 minutes, but it feels like a lot longer than that, just because it's a very sort of slow, quite meandering track. So I would give it a 6 out of 10 for Solar System.
Is somebody gonna tell me why?
And then we get my favourite on the album, without a shadow of a doubt. Is a song called The Night Was So Young, which is a more sort of slower, more sort of like bare bones ballad, like with an absolutely gorgeous melody. The vocals like on this are absolutely classic Beach Boys. This song, like I would say, would just fit right onto like the Pet Sounds album. It's that good. So yeah, definitely the highlight like on like the album for me. The Night Was So Young. The next one up is also really, really great. It's called I'll Bet He's Nice, which this one features brothers Brian and Dennis like sharing like lead vocals like on this song, which has a really nice arrangement. Like again, like it is quite synth based like most like off this album, but it's a very sort of good like sort of like considered like use like off them. It is a sort of jealous like love song like this track, like where like the singer like wants to know like about like a like sort of like previous lovers like kind of like new like relationship, like he's sort of saying like I bet that like he's like a like nice guy but like not as nice as like me, that sort of thing.
Take your time, don't worry how you feel, because you know.
And the next number is called Let's Put Our Hearts Together, which this is a slightly cheesy duet like between Brian and like his then wife like Marilyn Wilson. Brian's vocals are again slightly difficult like to listen to. Like again, you have to sort of like you have to put this like into like perspective. Like he was going through a lot like of like mental problems, a lot of like drug issues like around this time, but you can't sort of like kid yourself that like this is like a quality like vocal performance. Like I mean, like it's a very sort of like shaky like performance from him. Like plus like Madeline like isn't like the greatest singer either. It's just a bit too schmaltzy, a little bit too like sort of like cringy, like very cheesy like for like my taste personally.
I want to pick you up.
Now the next number is called I Want to Pick You Up, which this one is a pleasant enough ballad like sung by Dennis Wilson. Again, it's got slightly odd like lyrics like to this one here, like saying like I want to pick you up because you're still a baby to me. I mean, it maybe like is about sort of like resisting like a child like growing up, like sort of like trying like just like wanting to hold on to like those like early years like with like your child, like rather than like sort of like romantic song. Like whether like with this track like you kind of like you're not too sure, like a sort of borderline like as to like which like as to sort of like which like sort of like lyrical like interpretation like it actually is, like or like maybe like it is like just, or like maybe like they did like leave it like quite like ambiguous like for like a reason. So yeah, like not a bad song there. Like I Want to Pick You Up would get a 7 out of 10. And the next track is called Airplane, which is another very sort of like intricately produced track, this one here. Like again, very strong like harmony vocals. Literally this song is just about wanting to like take a trip, like to sort of like be closer like to like a loved one. Like again, like I like the changes that this track goes through. Like it ends like with like this very sort of like upbeat like rock and roll coda, which is very different like from like the quite sort of slow like sort of like verses like down like chorus. So just like overall quite a like effective track there. Like Airplane, we're getting 8 out of 10.
Love is a woman.
And then we finish the album with another slightly so-so song. It's called Love Is a Woman, which this one is another sort of slower ballad. Again, Brian sings it solo, and like again, his vocal does sound like quite like strained. Lyrically, it's a bit basic, a little bit like silly, like got like this sort of like counting like verse to it. Overall, it's okay. It just doesn't end the album like on like the best note for me personally.
And if you're smart,
Okay, so overall, this record would score 72%. So I would say it is quite a mixed bag, this album. Musically, I'd say it's very good. I really like the sounds like of this album. However, lyrically, I think it often becomes quite trivial and like quite like predictable, like for like the Beach Boys. Like it's it's far from like the sort of like Pet Sounds, like sort of like inspired, like emotional, like sort of like heart wrenching, like lyrics like which like Brian like maybe like intended to write. Like instead, like we get sort of like throwaway songs like Mona, like Roller Skating Girl, like Love Is a Woman, like sort of like slightly sort of like dull, like and like sort of like very sort of lyrics very much rooted like in that comfortable like Beach Boys territory. Also notably as well, this album would be the last major creative statement like from like Brian Wilson like until his 1989 solo album, like because I think like he like pretty much like after like this record like wasn't involved with any more Beach Boys albums. I think he recorded a follow-up like record to this called called Adult Child. I think that's what it was called, like whether like that was like unreleased like to this day, like I like believe. Overall, like I would say like this isn't like essential listening, like it's certainly like a sort of like curious one like for like Beach Boys fans, like basically like just like as to how wildly different it is to most like off like the other records, like it really didn't like carry on down like this sort of like more like experimental path. Like instead they went back to the more sort of like predictable like sort of like songs which are characterized like most of like their 70s work. But yes, an interesting, unique, slightly odd, but also relatively enjoyable record here by the Beach Boys, the album Love You. So yeah, that's been my review of it. I hope you have enjoyed, and I will see you all next time for the next video. Goodbye.
All your love tonight. Love is